28th, the last day of February, I believe. Hope you've had a good weekend. Hope you've enjoyed it, got some rest, or you've been killing it, whatever you're pursuing, whatever you're passionate about. But as you can see by the title, today was another day of coaching for my client, Kevin. You guys will know Kevin fairly well based on other live streams that I've done in the past week. And so, yeah, today was day three. And I've got back home and I'm fairly knackered, but I wanted to immortalize a piece of content just to cover what the day was like, the progress that Kevin made, the ups and the downs, and everything in between. So, yeah, let's get right into it. So, if you don't know who Kevin is, or you're not quite sure about what the context is behind this day three, so obviously, I've coached Kevin for 2 full days now in person in London, and he was here last weekend. And so, this is the final second part of our coaching period together. And so the first 2 days were, as you can expect, up and down. He started day one off the mark, off to a flyer, as somebody who had never ever done a single approach. He absolutely flew with it. I think he did about 30 approaches on his first day, got numbers, got Instagrams, and then, of course, you guys will know at the end of an amazing day, he managed to approach a Dutch girl by South Bank Centre, got her to stop, good conversation, took her number, set up a date for the same night, and then they went on the date that same night. His first date in 2 years, by the way. So he had a great start on day one. And then, as I always find with these cold approach immersions, the second day, not so great, right? Slipping on a few mechanics and struggling to really emulate what he'd shown me on day one. Partly, I think, because day one was so stimulating. I remember he told me in the morning of day two that he was high on adrenaline when he went back home in the evening after the date that he had with that Dutch girl, and he could barely sleep. So his energy must have been off. I remember it was quite often we didn't even really start day two until 30 minutes later because he wanted to get some fresh air and really absorb the surroundings and get used to it. So day two wasn't as spectacular, but he was still going in and he showed a lot of grit. So that's why I was very happy with his progress on day two. And we still had an opportunity to address certain sticking points and to really talk through about the more inner game aspects of getting good at the skill, dealing with that, let's say, that shame that a lot of us harbor when it comes to owning our sexual desires. So that's essentially what we were really working on. And that led us to day three, right? And so today I'd I met Kevin at the Liverpool Street station. We then went to a nearby coffee shop just to talk about the previous day, last week, how he felt about it, how he felt about today, going into today. And we discussed the main sticking points, right? The ones that I really wanted him to focus on because these were very fundamental and these are pivotal to making sure that your approach actually goes well, right? And so that's the open. And specifically, I spoke to him about being louder and really commanding the scene, really trying to get the attention of not just the girl, but also the people who are around her. And I realized when I reviewed his footage that there were many times where he wasn't being as loud as he could have been. And understandable, that's a beginner mistake because we're shy, we don't want to cause too much of a scene, would rather be concealed because being loud means getting the attention of lots of people. And I also find that clients are maybe a little bit afraid of startling the girl, or we think that it's a bit too aggressive or it's too in their face. But I always make the point to Kevin and to other clients that you want to smile, right? So we're doing this with a smile. And let's not forget that we are still going in with good intentions, right? Even if you're raising your voice a bit more than, let's say, the normal level in public, if you're smiling and you're calm and you're composed, people will still take it nicely. Girls will still be receptive to it. And so that's what I was really trying to get him to do. And I wanted to push him past his comfort zone because Kevin is a pretty chill guy. You know, he's funny, he's got a good sense of humor, slightly introverted like myself, but he's also a little bit quiet spoken, which is okay, right? And so I just know he's not used to raising his voice this much, right? And that's why I told him this morning, this is gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna feel like you're pushing past your boundary of comfort, right? Your comfort zone, because you're not used to this. This isn't a default way of you, or of you in terms of how you speak. So I want you to lean into that. I don't expect you to find it easy, but the only way that you get used to it is by crushing through it that first time. And today was really a day of crushing through those themes, right? The main theme of today was really reaching new heights, reaching a new level in terms of getting past our comfort zone, getting past his comfort zone. And so he did that. And why I like Kevin so much is because, he always implements my feedback. When I tell him, do this, do that, he tries his best to implement it, and he's very coachable. And so that's what he did. We had a great start to the day. Great start to the day. He was louder when I told him to be louder, and the stop was better as a result. He was more convicted in the conversations. He was early on in the day, he had this great conversation with this Canadian girl, and they were having a nice back and forth. He seemed pretty calm, way more calm than he'd seemed on day two. And he got her number, right? And he texted her, and we'll see where it goes. But first close of the day, very early on, I think that might have been his second or third approach. And so got off to a great start. He was obviously smiling, very happy, came back to me. I told him, dude, that was great. That's exactly what I'm looking for, that level of volume. And I told him specifically because he was obviously doing the approach, so he couldn't see who was around him. But I loved how this approach played out because I told him before that you want people to know what you're doing. We don't want to be concealed. We want the spotlight. And so when you're going in for the approach, you want to be loud enough that other people think you're talking to them, especially if they're next to the girl. And so in this case, it was a perfect opportunity for that, and I got it on camera. And so I'll show him later, but essentially when he said excuse me, it was so loud, right? Not obnoxiously loud, just it was loud enough, loud to the degree that I wanted it to be, that not only did the girl go, hey, but other people right next to him also thought, oh, what's going on here? Not in a bad way, just, oh, this guy said excuse me, maybe he's talking to us, maybe somebody dropped something. And I told Kevin, we want to think about the volume and conviction and how much energy we're going into the open as if somebody just dropped their wallet. Imagine if somebody dropped their wallet and you wanted to go give it back. You wouldn't give it back sheepishly. You wouldn't give it back like, hey, excuse me. No, you would go there and be like, hey, excuse me, you dropped your wallet. You'd be like almost shouting because you don't want them to get into Liverpool Street Station without their wallet, without their ID. You're a good Samaritan, right? And so we need to go into the approaches with the same level of conviction. And so that's what I told him, and he got it and he did it. And so, yeah, more good approaches after that. Some stops were better than others in terms of getting in front, but he was doing well in terms of volume. The volume stayed consistent. I could see that now he understood why it's important. So he really kept that going and maintained that level of volume. So that was good. So the next thing to focus on was just the stop itself, getting in front of the girl as much as possible, wrapping around and doing the hook stop, which is obviously where you try to get in front gradually as you're getting her attention and making her just calm and stopping her gradually. So he was working on that and doing well. And then we got onto Liverpool Street again after taking a slight detour. And then there was a funny moment where this was a little bit earlier than I anticipated because the plan wasn't to approach groups of girls. So, girls in twos, so 2 sets, 3 sets, 4 sets. I wanted that to be the second half of the day, but I saw this, beautiful pair of girls. So I thought you got to go in for them. And one big reason why is because as we were walking towards them, there were construction workers on the other side of the road and they were catcalling these girls. And I thought, I mean, that's a really pussy way to do it, right? Catcalling from afar, whistling and doing all this stuff because the girls looked quite great. I imagine they were going to some fancy brunch. And so I wanted Kevin to go in for that approach to show those guys how it's done and to also wow the girls because it's one thing to shout random compliments and whistle at girls from 30 meters away. It's another thing to put your balls on the line, to stand right in front of all these people, and give them a compliment and chat to them. And that's exactly what he did. The stop was good. He engaged them for maybe a minute or 2 or 3 minutes. Nothing crazy, but he was the one to do it. And so I love the fact that he kind of showed how it's meant to be done, right? The gentleman's way of approaching and making our desires known. So we kept on pushing down Liverpool Street on the way past Bishopsgate onto London Bridge. And on the way there, I called out another girl because as the coach, I'm calling out the girls, right? Although I expect my clients to eventually just go for the girls themselves without me needing to push them, which will be a focus for tomorrow as this is the final day. But I pointed out this nice curly haired girl, light skinned girl, and he went in for it. Stop was okay, but volume was good. And they had a nice conversation. And she was on her way to Pilates, and they were talking about that. And I think he asked her to guess where he's from, and then they had that little chat. And it was funny because before he closed, he she asked him, she was like, oh, what do you think about guys approaching girls, because you're confident enough to do it, but I feel like guys need to do it more. And then he said, yeah, I'm not big on the dating apps, I prefer to do it in person. And then she was like, yeah, I really respect that, I think guys should do this more. And then he went for the clothes, got her Instagram, and voila, came back to me. And he asked me, did you hear what she said? And I said, of course I heard it, I have my earphones in, I've mic'd you up. And we had this discussion because I mean, he seemed a little bit surprised, but I've been down this road. So many girls have told me, keep doing this. This is great. I love it. So she is just another example of someone who wishes she got approached, right? Because nobody likes being online, right? Even the girls who are online, even the ones who get the matches, they don't like it. It's just too hectic. It's too much to deal with. They would much rather some handsome guy with long hair, or me, with my uncle hairline. They'd much rather me come and say hi, and that's just how it is. So that was a really good positive reference experience for him, right? Not only a girl saying, "Oh, thank you so much, but I have a boyfriend," or "Thank you so much, but I'm not interested," but this was a step beyond that. This is somebody saying, "Thank you so much. People should do this more. Like, you know, guys should do this more. I want to be approached, this and that." And she was stunning, by the way. I kind of felt jealous. I was like, damn, I kind of wish I approached her. But I'm cool. I'm chilling. I've got my options. In fact, I won't make this about me, but I did approach somebody right before I got my train at Waterloo, and yeah, I got her number. Beautiful Ukrainian girl, and yeah, this is one of the flirtiest conversations I've had in a while. Obviously I don't have it on camera, so you just have to take my word for it. But it was, yeah, this was really nice, and she responded to my text message once I hit her up. So again, we'll see once I'm back from Italy. Try and take her out for a date. Maybe take her out on a date tomorrow. I haven't actually set anything up officially because I'm not going to be in the country for most of next week. But she was very receptive. She told me about her schedule. She told me she's free on weekends. Yada yada yada. But anyway, it's not about me. So let's keep on pushing with the day. So yeah, so we obviously did that approach. We crossed London Bridge, and then we went down the steps and went a little bit towards Tower Bridge, and we did a few more approaches here. And I figured that would be a nice time to take a break, like a 10-minute break, just to chat. And when we took that break, I told Kevin, look, you've done well so far. Your volume is up. Your stop is getting much better, right? Still room for improvement there in terms of getting in front, but you're doing well. I'm seeing improvement. And also his, let's say, his composure, he was a lot calmer, right? He wasn't as frantic as he was at times on day two, or even day one. And so at that point I said, look, you're doing well, progress, but now we need to up the ante. Yeah, now we need to push even more. And how are we going to do that? We're not just going to approach girls who are by themselves. We're going to go for 2 sets, 3 sets, groups of friends in this busy area. And this is at the busiest time of the day. It was around 1 p.m., 2 p.m. And so I said, look, I want you to crush that spotlight fit, because one thing that he told me was there were a few approaches on the bridge where he felt as if they didn't go as well, and he felt nervous. And I called it out. I said, yeah, you seem nervous. You seem a little bit jittery. You seem a little bit unsure, even though you just had a really good start. You've just closed two girls, two stunning girls. So why are you feeling more nervous? And he told me, he said, yeah, man, it's just a bit busy. Yeah, it's so much busier. There's so many more people because London Bridge is one of the busiest bridges because it's such a wide pavement. So yeah, there were a lot of people. And I said, well, if that's your fear, then we're going to have to crush that. And so thankfully, we got to that South Bank area, or not South Bank, but Queen's Walk, Tower Bridge. Um, and and that was a perfect opportunity to not only crush his spotlight fear of being around lots of people, but to do it by approaching girls in groups, which is harder, right? But I told him, look, in this instance, we're not here to flirt with these groups of girls. We're not here to get numbers because that's a harder level, right? I can do it. I've done it before. In fact, just give me a second, boys. I'm just moving my leg because just need to get comfortable. I'm in a yoga position on the bed. You can't see my legs, but they are in a very weird position. But anyway, yes, I told him, look, the focus for this phase of the day, where we're just approaching groups, it has nothing to do with getting numbers or Instagrams or even having a good conversation. I just wanted them to stay in the conversation, one, but most importantly, just to go in for the approaches and to maintain volume. Because I told him there's a great, interesting paradox with cold approach where we tend to get quieter the bigger the spotlight. So because we're nervous, we want to, for some reason, we're more concealed the more people there are. Which is interesting because I told him, in reality, to give yourself the best chance of stopping the girls in busier areas, you need to be louder, not quieter. You need to be louder. And so he got that. He was like, yeah, you need to be louder, but I still feel way more nervous, way more afraid of all these different people. And of course, there's that fear that when it's a group of girls, then one friend won't like you, the other friend might like you, but you have to entertain both, and it just feels like a lot more. And so, he was nervous when I told him that that was the next phase. I could see it in his face, I could see it in his eyes. He was kind of like just preparing himself, which is, it's understandable. Um, but we went on. I said, "Are you ready?" I looked at him and he said, "Yeah, I'm ready." So we went in. I called them out and he did not hesitate. The first group I called out, which was like probably 10 seconds after we got up from the seating area at Queen's Walk, he went in, right? So Kevin is a action taker. He really goes in for these approaches. He rarely ever bails, rarely. There was some where I said, approach that group of six. I just wanted to see if I could test him and push him to a new boundary. And yeah, a few of those he bailed on, but that's okay. Ultimately, he went in for literally 90% of the approaches I've called for him so far across all 3 days. So he is an action taker. And so he did that. And the first ones were okay. They stopped, they had conversations, he got some good reactions. He ejected from the con. If I remember the first one, he ejected quickly and he knew it before I even said anything. Because nowadays, I like my clients to self audit, right? So at the start, day one, day two, when they come back to me after an approach, whether it went well or whether it went poorly or neutral, I give feedback and I'll tell them what I thought they did well, what I thought they need to improve on. But today was a bit of both because, yes, I was telling him what he should have done or what he could have improved on, but I also gave him space to self audit because I won't always be there in his ear. Of course, we're going to work with each other for an additional 3 months post immersion because I like to give my clients support. It's not as simple as, oh, you just do 4 days of an immersion with me and then I just let you sail off into the ocean by yourself. No, this is a continued support. It's a movement, and I'm there in your corner for you to use as a resource and to hold you accountable. So I want to prep Kevin as much as I can so that he can actually think for himself, critique himself from an objective perspective, take his ego out of it, take his feelings out of it, and genuinely ask himself, what could I have done better there? Because now he has a whole body of work. He's done so many approaches, so he knows what a good approach looks like. I've shown it to him on camera. I've shown it to him on my Mac, right, with the 4K footage. He knows what a good approach sounds like. I've shown him the audio. He's listened to it again and again and again. So he knows what is good, right? So I have no fears or worries or doubts that he doesn't know what a good approach is or that he's not capable of it. He is capable because I've seen him do it and he's doing it more and more. But it was funny because after that first group of two that he approached, he came right to me. Before I said anything, he said, "Yeah, I should have stayed in that one longer." And I said, "Yeah, exactly," because he excused himself. But I thought to myself, why are you leaving so early? The girls liked you. They were smiling. I forgot where they were from, but they were smiling. They were stood there. They weren't, sometimes the girls are angled and they're sort of making it a bit obvious that they're trying to leave, but they were engaging with him and they took the compliment well. And so I asked them, okay, so you tell me, right? Why did you leave early? And he sort of thought about it and he said, yeah, it's because I'm not used to it. And, I felt like I was going to blank. And I said, okay, so why is that a big issue? And he said, I'll just feel awkward and I'm nervous. And that's what I wanted him to say, all right? I just want my clients to own how they feel. You don't have to hide behind a facade as if, yeah, just this and that. You can just say, yeah, it would have felt awkward and I would have felt embarrassed if I blanked in front of two of them and I'm not used to this. And I said, yeah, it's okay. I'm not expecting you to be a conversational master, absolutely swiping two girls off their feet and seducing both of them like some Casanova. No, 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 no. That's way too much, way too early. Baby steps, right? This is a process, but that's what I said. The focus was just get in there and stay in the conversation as long as you can, and get face that discomfort. And it was great because as we went through South Bank, eventually he had a conversation with two girls. He approached them, they were receptive, and of course he was still nervous because he's not used to it. But he kept talking, kept talking. They responded a few times, and then at one point he just said, "Oh yeah, I forgot what to say. I kind of blanked." And then they were like, "Oh okay, but we do have to go and get lunch or whatever." And then he said, "Okay, cool." And then he came back to me and I said, "Yes, thank you for just owning the fact that you didn't have anything to say. Right? I want you to embrace that awkwardness because that's a part of the learning curve. You don't get good until you eat shit for a little bit, right? Nobody can bend or take shortcuts with this process if it's going to be done properly and you want to do it properly, which means you have to embrace the suck phase, embrace it. The clients who do the best, I know this as somebody who's coaching, as somebody who's seen others be coached, and as somebody who me myself has gotten coaching. The guys who do the best are the guys who embrace the suck period. They embrace it for what it is, which is just part of the process. They're okay, especially because they know that they have me in their corner as somebody to just come back to, as somebody to give them permission, as somebody to be an emotional punching bag, as somebody to reassure them that they're okay, that they're doing well, this is fine, this is normal. Those are the guys who fly because they understand that this is just part of the game. Feeling awkward, feeling embarrassed is part of the game because the more you do it, the less you feel that way. But you have to go through that initial period of exposure. And so we kept going in for more groups. He was going in for them, and some went well, and then others were more brutal, right? And I think at some point, because this was taking a lot out of Kevin, because he's not used to approaching groups. I mean, he's never done approaches before, right? So now he's approaching groups, which is harder. And so we sat down, we got to London Bridge, and then we, we just sat down, and it was very busy there. And I told him, look, man, we can just chill and you can just take a break. And I told him, you don't have to say anything. You can just process everything. Because he said he wanted to process everything that was happening, which is understandable, right? Like when I'm really pushing you in this skill, it's going to take a lot on you mentally and like emotionally because you're getting blown out. You're having highs, you're having lows. It's very volatile. Your sense of self-worth is getting boosted and then it's getting punched again and then like up and down, up and down. And if you're not used to doing this, it's hard. I mean, yeah, sure, I've done 1,000 approaches, right? But Kevin's done, let's say, about at this point, he's probably done at least 50, at the very least 50, probably even six, probably 60 at the very least. So That's a lot to do in 3 days of coaching, but he's still a beginner. Yeah, just because he got a date doesn't mean that he's an expert, right? And so nobody earns that confidence in a day. Nobody earns that ego, death, destruction attitude towards life that I have in a day or in 3 days, right? It takes time. It's a process. So anyway, we sit down. He's processing the emotions, what he's thinking about, whatever he's thinking about, and I'm giving him that space. I'm not saying anything. I'm just letting him relax, think to himself. And I was there. I said, look, if you want to ask me any questions, ask me. And then he starts asking me about, dealing with the awkwardness, dealing with the spotlight, owning the social aspect. We start talking about how, he's not been as social in terms of speaking to strangers and, really putting himself out there. He's got his comfortable group of friends, but he feels like he needs to put himself out there a bit more to be more comfortable. And I said, that would be great, but I think there's a better way to crush through that spotlight fear. There's a better way to crush through that fear of judgment from other people, from the strangers, from other people around you. And that way is to just do the hardest, most scariest approaches ever, right? The reason I push my clients to do hard approaches is because if you can do the hardest approach imaginable, like let's say a group of 5 girls or a girl with her mum, if you can do that, then anything below that feels like a cakewalk. It feels like a piece of cake. It's like taking a piss. It's like drinking water. And I told that to Kevin. He understood, but in my experience, it's one thing to preach this message, but it's also really important to practice it. So I must practice what I preach as a coach. Now he's seen my infields, he's seen my videos, but I thought in that moment, you know what? Let me just demonstrate to him what happens when you've been through this process to a point where your ego is completely dead and you don't give a fuck. You just don't care. And so we're talking. I'm telling him, yeah, in Belgrade, I approached this group of 5 girls and it was the scariest one I've ever done. It felt as if I was having an out of body experience. It was so emotionally intense afterwards. And I'm leveling with Kevin. I'm telling him, look, I was in the same position as you. I also got pushed into something that I was deeply afraid of, that was making my heart go in my mouth, but I still went in. And I'm glad I did, because once I did that, then I thought, oh, I can do anything. Everything else seems easy in comparison to that. And so as we're sat in this public area with lots of people walking up and down, because London Bridge is where Borough Market is. So we were right by Borough Market and there were so many people. And I told him, Kevin, let me show you what I mean when I say I don't give a fuck. So I stand up and we're in this busy interchange pedestrian area, but right by the river with all these cobblestones, dozens of people, hundreds of people walking up and down. I stand right in the middle of the path and I put my bag down and I sit down cross-legged and I start doing this, right? I start meditating like a monk, like a Buddha. And I'm meditating and I'm just sat there. I've got my eyes closed and I open my eyes and I'm looking around. I see people looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Right? I look at Kevin, he's like just smiling. He's kind of red faced. He's like a little bit taken aback. He's like, he's kind of laughing to himself because there are all these people next to him and on both sides of him eating their lunch, also looking at me like, what's this guy doing? And then I take another level and I go, mate, it doesn't matter, right? So I put my bag a bit further back. I lie down and I'm just lying down on the floor. I'm lying down on the pavement and just like daydreaming, like kind of looking at the sky, like, oh, the sky looks nice, right? And I'm just smiling at myself and people are walking past looking at me like, what the? And I turn to Kevin and he's sat there and he's like, he's just like this. He's like, and I'm just trying to prove a point that it doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck what these people think. And I'm lying there and I can hear people going, is he okay? Like, what's going on? Some people are laughing. Some people are like just going about their day, didn't even pay me any mind. And I'm just sat there, lying there. I laid there for maybe a minute. And then afterwards, I get up on my knees. I start doing 10 push-ups. I start doing push-ups. People are looking at me like, what, again? And I'm just trying to demonstrate that free will is free will if you use it properly, right? If you don't care about what people think, then the world is yours. Anything is accessible. You can do anything you want. Nobody can tell you shit. It doesn't matter what people think. I'm sure people thought I was crazy, out of my mind. Maybe I'd taken drugs. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. And so I was trying to demonstrate that to Kevin, not in a sense that this is what you should be like today, but this is who you could be like if you keep on pushing yourself, above and beyond the boundaries, above your comfort zone. And this is what you need to flourish with the skill, because once your sense of self-worth isn't attached to what the girls think or what the bystanders think or what the public think, regardless of whether or not it's when you do an approach or when you're lying down on the pavement with your bag on your back, meditating and humming or doing 10 push-ups in broad daylight and having all these people look at you, then once you detach your sense of self-worth from that and you can just be, you can just exist and just do whatever you want, then you can do anything. You don't care anymore. And it's funny because he was more cringed out and, let's say, clearly affected by me drawing the spotlight to us, right? Because obviously I went back and sat down with him as if nothing happened. But he was I could see it in Kevin's eyes, because he looked at me and he could tell that, wait a minute, Ian isn't even like nervous, or he doesn't seem like his adrenaline has spiked from doing that crazy public spotlight, you know, stunt. Because this is just, I mean, obviously I was just doing a stunt, right? I don't do this every single day. I was just trying to make a point. But he probably expected my heart rate to be up, or to be, he's probably expecting me to think, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, right? And I just sat down like nothing happened. I sat down, I said, yeah, mate, you see, you know, just how I'm talking right now in the live stream, as if nothing happened. And let me tell you something, most guys could never do anything like that because their ego's too attached to what people will think. And I get it, right? But and I made the point to Kevin that I've not always been like this. I told him there's a live stream on my channel a few days ago. I used to have social anxiety. So the idea of doing something as socially audacious as what I just did today during that break is absolutely insane. In fact, I also can't believe it sometimes. I think, oh, 1 second, boys, I'm just moving my legs again. Oh, yeah. Like even I'm kind of like, damn, I have completely transformed who I am at so many levels that it's almost scary, because I'm a very different person. And so I'm not going to make this stream about me, but the point was I wanted to demonstrate to him that it's okay to look silly, it's okay to look stupid. It's okay. It's okay, because I'm still going to survive. I'm here. Nobody shot me, nobody arrested me, nobody threw paint at my face. Yeah, a few people made a few comments. Who gives a fuck, right? So I think that really inspired him. I think well, not even I think, he told me, he was like, bro, what you just did there inspired the hell out of me. And I was happy that that was the case. So we got back up and then we finished the day. We just kept on going for approaches. I told him, look, let's just have fun, because I could tell that he was exhausted, but I wanted to push him to his limit, because I found that even though clients are tired and they're exhausted, I can still push them in and they can still go. And so I just want to see where their limit is, because again, like I said, it's up to me, as it's my responsibility as the coach to push you to that point. It's like getting those final reps in at the gym, right? You've got the spotter there and it's like the spotter's telling you, it's okay, you've got it, you've got it. And I'm there for my clients, right? I'm there when they feel like, it's not going well for them. They're not getting numbers, or they're not getting the girls to stop as much. They're getting blown out. Some reactions are okay, others are less favorable. That can happen. And so I'm there to just give that support. Just like the trainer, or the personal trainer who's spotting you when you're lifting those final 2 reps, right? And yes, it feels like your muscles are about to break. It feels like your ego's about to burst into flames when you're getting rejected. But that's the point, right? We're trying to get as close to that point as possible. So he understood that, he embraced that, and we kept on going. And yeah, at one point I did tell him, I took him aside and I said, look, Kevin, do you want to give up? Because you can give up now. We still have 40 minutes left of this session. You can give up now, but you paid me your money and you're not going to have me by your side all the time. So it's up to you, mate, but you can give up. And I just said that, left the silence. He thought about it and he said, okay, I'll do a few more. I'll do a few more. And I said, great. And it's funny because this is another example of how I will believe in my clients even when they don't believe in themselves. I will push them even when they can't push themselves. Because in that moment when Kevin agreed to do a few more approaches, he told me, okay, I'll do 2 more approaches and then we'll see how I feel. But then guess how many approaches he ended up doing for the next 40 minutes or the last 40 minutes of the session. He did about like 6 or 7 or 8. So in his mind, he thought, you know, I only have one more in me or two more in me. But because I pushed him, I was like, no, you've probably got 5, 6, or even 7. And he ended up having that many. Some went well, some went less well, less well. But the point is, he went in, right? And so we were having as much fun, laughing at the blowouts. It wasn't a big deal. And yeah, and then we just finished the day, went and got some nice, some healthy food at Farmer Jay's, some nice harissa grilled chicken. Beautiful. Because we had a long day. So yeah, and then that was it. And I told him, look, man, I'm very proud of you because he'd really dug deep today, and he reached a new level because he'd done stuff that he hadn't done before again, right? So on day one he hadn't approached before, but today he was approaching groups, and he was louder, right? And he was really carving out that new identity that will become permanent to him at some point. It might be hard to see it now, but as time goes on, as he continues to practice, continues to go out and approach and sharpen his skill set, as we continue to work together one to one, he will enter that new identity, which is why I was so proud of him today, because he was really stepping into those shoes, even though it didn't feel like they were comfortable. Maybe to him, those shoes felt a bit too big. They didn't fit perfectly, but that's okay. We grow into the shoes, but we have to step into them at first before we grow into them. And so that's what he did. He took my feedback. He went in when I called him to, when I told him to. And that's all I can ask for as a coach, right? Somebody who's coachable, somebody who's willing to get past their comfort zone, and also somebody who's engaged, right? He was engaged, asking me questions, trying to be the best he can, trying to put his best foot forward. And so he's got the right mentality. He's got what he needs to succeed. And that's why today was really great. So if you're watching, Kevin, I've already said it a million times, but I'm proud of you. Well done. And tomorrow is the last day of our 4-day coaching immersion. And so, yeah, tomorrow we'll just hit the pavement again, and we'll just try and get that approach as clean cut as possible, as sharp as possible. And then we'll just continue to iterate and improve as time goes on. But yeah, very proud of him. And yeah, again, today he did probably 30 approaches. I mean, so many. And so he's really smashed it out the park, way more than I expected for somebody who had never done an approach before. So yeah, onwards, and yeah, it's going to keep on getting better. So let's get it. But other than that, boys, all is good. So I just moved out of my apartment. So now I'm staying with my brother temporarily, since I'll be traveling to Rome next week to coach my client Giacomo. And then after that, I'll be back in the UK, and I'll hopefully be leaving the country again in April. Not quite sure where, but I am making moves to leave the country briefly. So just to travel, as well as trying to earn some more money in different areas. But of course, I'm offering coaching now. So if you guys are interested in getting coached, and you're somewhere in Europe, whether it's the UK or any other mainland European country, then the link is in the description. Yeah, you can book an application call. We can have a chat. We'll see if we're a good fit, and I can help you transform your dating life, right? And I only want guys who have the right mindset, the mindset like Kevin, guys who are willing to put their balls on the line and try to have as much fun along the way as possible, but also understanding that this is going to take a lot from you. Not once on these live streams or in my videos have I ever claimed that this is easy. This isn't easy, because if it was easy, then everybody would do it. But not everybody does it. Only a segment of the male population has the cojones to do this. And so I'm making a call to those guys, to the guys who have it all on paper. You have something about yourself. You're dateable. You've worked, you contribute something to society, you're well respected amongst your peers, your family to some level, you have a decent amount of self-belief, you're presentable, and the only thing lacking is your dating life. Just like how I was, just like how Kevin is, right? So that's what I'm looking for. And if you have the right mentality and the right attitude, then you can get great results if you really apply yourself. So I'm here for you. If you're interested, book the call. Let's see, because this could be the start of a completely new life. I mean, Code Approach completely transformed my life in ways that I cannot describe enough. I keep banging on about it, and I will till the cows come home. I will continue to die on this hill because this is transformative. And so yes, you'll get the dates, you'll get the girlfriend experiences, you'll fuck around, you'll get laid. Yes, you'll get that if you get good, once you get coached and you have me in your corner. But you'll also find yourself. You'll also embark on this journey of self-discovery. You'll love yourself so much more. You'll be so much more graceful to yourself. You'll treat yourself better. You'll talk to yourself better. You'll give yourself the right narrative instead of being such a harsh, super self-critical person. You'll sort of see the dualities of life. You'll realize that there's good days, bad days. Sometimes things don't go well for you, but ultimately you're a solid guy. And you'll get to a point where you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm a solid guy. And nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can take that away from Kevin, right? Because we've put the reps in. We've had our ego punched. And ego death this is all about ego death. And it's a beautiful process because that's true freedom. The death of the ego, the destruction of the ego is true freedom. There is nothing like it, because if your ego doesn't control you and you're just a free spirit and you do whatever you like when you feel like it, who can stop you? Nobody can, right? You're like an unshakable rock. No matter how treacherous the storms are, no matter how intense the tornado is, the carnage around it, but the stone stays still. The stone stays still, resolute, unmoving. That's how I feel. That's how Kevin will feel eventually as he continues to develop, and that's how you could feel. So, and if you don't want to join, great. Continue to consume the content. I'm still here for you guys. The guys who are approaching solo. I'll be releasing more stuff in terms of how to really sharpen up your approach if you're a solo player, because I relate to the solo players too. I used to be a solo player. That's how I started. I didn't get coached immediately. When I got dates, I was doing it by myself, trying to put my best foot forward by consuming content like this. So for the guys out there, I will be on your side as well. I'm not pushing everybody. I know some people aren't financially capable. It's fine. But ultimately, if you want to expedite this process and, instead of paying with time, you want to pay with money, then sign up and we'll get to work. And we'll have fun along the way as well. Obviously I'm getting a bit deep about the spiritual aspects and how scary this can be and nerve-wracking, but you'll learn to laugh about it. And that's true freedom as well, being able to laugh about this stuff. But you have to get through that suck phase to find it funny. um, but yeah, that's about it, boys. So yeah, I'll do another recap at the end of tomorrow for the final day. And then yeah, off to Rome next week. I'm excited. Can't wait to meet my client out there. And so yeah, that should be a good time as well. But otherwise, boys, it's been a long day. I've been yapping the whole day with my client and I only just got back. So I'm going to call it a night. But until the next one, good night, boys.